This conference will now be recorded.
Hello.
Hi, yeah, we are about to start the session. Just wait for a couple of minutes. We are about.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Hello, good morning, guys.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning,
Yeah,
everyone.
very good morning.
So let me know if you can see my screen, guys.
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear. Yes, I
Okay.
can.
So let me start with my introduction, guys. Myself, Shiv Prasad. I'm currently working as a cloud architect and DevOps engineer. I work on various environments and I help teams in setting up of CI/CD pipelines using it various DevOps tools for achieving CI/CD pipelines. Apart from that, I also give designing and best practices solutions onto various clouds such as AWS, GCP, okay, and on-premise infrastructure like VMware and VRA and OpenStack clouds. Okay, so training is a part-time that I do, and I've been delivering trainings on various technologies like Linux, VMware, AWS, GCP, right, and DevOps. In DevOps, we work on various tools. My expertise is mostly into building up of CI/CD pipelines, and now the latest technologies like containers and Kubernetes and Terraform. So we are just going out of the native tools and getting into the latest tools such as Terraform and Kubernetes, Docker, and all of this. So building up of microservices on top of Dockers is one of the key expertise that I should tell you. And I have been certified in various technologies that I have been delivering. I'm AWS certified professional, Kubernetes certified administrator, right? And so DevOps doesn't have a specific certification though, but my expertise into different tools is very good, guys. And training is a part time that I do, and let's get started. So I want to keep this session at a very high level, guys. Okay, I don't want to get into details of what is what, but this is just to give you an idea of what DevOps is and why everyone is trying to get into DevOps, because this session is more of an interaction because we have a lot of people from different backgrounds. So it's all about you asking me questions. It's not me what I'm going to tell you, because you might have done your own research on what is what. But just to bring the context of what we are going to see or what DevOps is, I have put some couple of slides here to discuss what is what, and then it's your turn to ask me questions and I'm here to address them. Okay, so let's put it that way. So let's get started, guys. So right, so DevOps. So everybody has a different perspective towards DevOps, guys. Some think that it's a technology, some things it's a methodology. Okay, some things that it's a software development life cycle. Okay, there are different definitions altogether, but this is what I would say. It is a combination of development, operations, and quality assurance or quality analysis, right? So the whole process has started here, guys, like SDLC, which is like software development life cycle, right from the day one, when people started developing the softwares, right? Any software that you talk about, right? They use different methods, by the way, right? You might have heard about ITL process, you might have heard about waterfall model. So all of those still exist, by the way. But when we talk about DevOps, it has given some kind of essence, or it has given some kind of push to an existing development models to build a robust software and development environment, as well as to give you a better environment where it is free from all the bugs. You are able to fix the issues, like unlike before, right? And you're able to give the quality to that application that you're actually developing. So that's what DevOps actually brings, guys. So it is a combination of development, it's a combination of quality assurance, and it's a combination of operations. And that amalgam of all of these three is nothing but DevOps. So the name itself says it's a development and operations, by the way. Okay. So there are different definitions, by the way. So there are different definitions to talk about DevOps. Okay, people say, like said, DevOps is not a technology, guys. When someone asks me what DevOps is, and in the interviews also people ask you what DevOps is, but that's not the way you. So DevOps is not a technology, by the way. It's a methodology that we implement to develop our product, to develop our software that we have. Okay, so it's all about development and operations. So what is this development and operations, right? So the development and operations is there since a very long time, and now we are hearing this term buzzword DevOps in the past recent times. But what exactly it is, right? So right from the day one of software development lifecycle, right? And we have the development team, we have the operations team. But if you know, or if you understand the way they work, you'll understand the importance of DevOps here, guys. So let me put some points there. So can anyone tell me, guys, what are the activities of a development team? What does a development team does? What do they do? As a developer, what is their responsibilities?
Do the coding, unit test it, and deliver it, deploy it.
Coding, compilation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Testing, unit testing,
Mm-hmm.
and quality
Deploy,
assurance,
quality
right?
assurance.
And
Mm-hmm.
then building it, isn't
Building.
it?
Mm-hmm.
Once the build is done, now it comes to the operations guy. Now what does operations guys do, guys? What is the responsibilities of operations guy?
Deploy it, manage it.
Maintains infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
right? Installations, configurations, management, and then he talks about deployments. Once the code is deployed, his job is to monitor the deployments,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it? And then afterwards, his job is to maintain upgrades, updates. Okay. So make sure that your application is able to perform accurately as per the requirement and all, isn't it? So if you look at, this is what they do, guys. This is what they do. But throughout their lives before DevOps, this developer will never ever get a chance to communicate to the operations team, and operations team will never ever get a chance to talk to the developer team. They don't know what is happening, vice versa, isn't it, guys? That's how it will be. And ultimately, once the product is developed, it is out for the release, and your product owner or the end user started using your product. So if something goes wrong, so they started using it. If something goes wrong, what happens? They raise a request would come to the operations team, and operations team doesn't know how the code functions basically, but they are very good at infrastructure management. Now what do they do is that by using monitoring tools, they collect all the statistics saying that, my application, we have a good network, we have good CPU, good memory, all of these things. And development team and testing team tells that, we already tested this use case, but we don't know where the problem is. So the problem always revolves in and around this blame game, guys. And that was a traditional method, by the way. So it was very difficult to find out the error where the bug is. It is very difficult to fix the bug, and right, someone has to come look into the code, do all the debugging. It used to take a lot of time to fix the issues, by the way. So even now this is the case, but what has changed is the way that these DevOps guys communicate with each other. Like the development team and operations team communicate each other. That's where the exchange of skill set came into picture. What does DevOps brings to the table is that now, as the operations team, it is very important that they understand how the development is going on, what happens in the coding, what is compiling, what happens in the testing, what kind of test cases are built. And as a development team, when they are developing a software or application, they should be aware of the kind of infrastructure that we are going to use, right? Because even the deployments are now are happening with the help of a infrastructure as a code. We are not going to use the traditional methods of assign couple of engineers and their job is to provision 10 machines, now install all the applications manually. No, we are not doing that. Even the provisioning of the infrastructure is also happening with the help of a code, guys. Okay, so as a part of that, now developers should know how each and every infrastructure component will work. So that's what DevOps actually brings to the table. It is bringing the kind of knowledge between how the DevOps development will work and how the operations do, because of which there are minimal chances of having the errors when when the code is deployed out to the external world. Okay, and it is very easy for people to fix out the bugs, and they can easily redirect the error saying that, hey, there is an error at this component, you please look into it, right? This is the whole purpose of DevOps. I'm just giving you one use case here. Okay, so that's what DevOps brings to the table, by the way. So DevOps is an enterprise software development phase used to mean a time of agile relationships between development and IT operation. And agile is the other term that we use very frequently, very often when we are talking about DevOps, guys. Okay, so for those who are not aware of this, no worries, we'll talk in detail of what agile is, what are the other methods that we have, but this is just to give you an idea of what is what. Okay, so any questions here on this slide, guys, here?
No, clear so far.
Okay, thank you. So let's get to the other thing. And what's and whys of DevOps? What is that DevOps bringing to the table now, right? The goal of DevOps is to change and improve the relationships by advocating better communication, collaboration between the two business units, right? So I myself have seen situations where, guys, and as an infrastructure guy, we always talk to the higher level management who doesn't know what kind of development they have, right? And they give us a solutions, like a paper solutions. They give us numbers saying that this is what we want. And the moment we start procuring the hardware and the moment we start building the infrastructure for them, at the end of the day, the end users are not satisfied, the developers are not satisfied with the kind of infrastructure that we have provisioned. Reason: management is lacking a communication, or the infrastructure team is lacking communication with the development team of what they actually need, right? And there are also chances where throughout the years, like, you know if you talk to your old developer friends and all, they used to develop a software for years, guys. One software development would take like minimum 1 to 3 years, even 1 year to 3 years in between. They work on the code, they work on the testing, they work on a lot of things. After that's done, they talk about the deployment. When they're talking about deployment, right? Let's say suppose I have a software which needs some kind of latest processes. Okay. So when we're talking about processors, it's their job is to get communicated with the infrastructure team, infrastructure head, understand what kind of infrastructure do we have in our data center, so that will that be sufficient for to run this kind of new approach that we're getting into. That's the main method, right? But they fail to do that. So throughout this process, they will never ever do that. At the end of the stages, they come to the infrastructure team and say that, hey, we want a development environment, or we want an environment where we need to host this environment. And the infrastructure team would come up and say that, I'm sorry, we don't have this kind of infrastructure now. We need to do the procurement of this hardware. Okay. So this is the kind of things that I seen in my own life when we are working with the organizations, guys. That means, but initially when they are talking about development of the application itself, if they get a chance to talk the infrastructure, they get a better picture of what they have, and they understand what is that they want to do, and simultaneous the work would happen, right? So this is what DevOps bring to the table. That means, as uh, a thumb rule in DevOps, it's all about establishing communication between these two teams, development and infrastructure team, on a daily basis. Okay. And DevOps practices and procedures leads to something out of typical bumpiest aspect of software development and deployment. Like, the main purpose is to establish communication and to overcome the last minute hassles of not having the infrastructure or not supporting of what application we have and all. By pulling infrastructure setup and awareness earlier in the development cycle, surprises from environmental differences are significantly reduced. This is what I'm talking about, guys. So usually if you are involving the infrastructure team, if you're involving infrastructure team in the initial stages of development life cycle, that will actually reduce the last minute surprises of not having the infrastructure or not supporting of infrastructure. Now when you're talking with they'll tell you, like, that the infrastructure team will tell you that, okay, this is what you're trying to develop, but this is not how it works. Okay, if you tweak your code in this way, and this is how it will be work on, we can get the best results out of it. So the constant communication between these two teams will give you a better output, is what DevOps does here, guys. And by establishing consistent, reliable, and operatable automated deployments, human errors and the need of rockstar firefighters are reduced. So when we're talking about deployments, right? Earlier, like I said, if you want to deploy an application or your code onto like 10 web servers, the entire process used to take manual, guys. We used to build each and every server manually, execute each script manually, set up the applications manually, and then bring it live. And if something goes wrong, again you have to figure it out, where and what went wrong, look into the logs, troubleshoot it, right? Meeting the SLAs, overcoming SLAs, all of those stuff. But what if this entire process of deployment itself is automated, where there is no manual intervention involved, right? In those cases, it is, we are overcoming human errors, the manual errors, and if there is any fixes that you need to do, it's everything out there. You just roll out those changes and everything is in place. You don't have to do things manually, right? So even the fixing of bugs, fixing of errors is all automated, and you don't have to be there, and it happens seamlessly. So in many ways, DevOps is about ensuring quality at all stages, right? So when we say stages, that's where we talk about CI/CD pipeline. We'll elaborate that, guys. We'll talk about each and every phase now. Any questions here?
No, sure.
Yep. Thank you. So DevOps will be used to build you a high performing culture and or environment for you to build the software development process, leads to better products and services, increased customer satisfactions, improved profitability. Can anyone tell me, like, so far what we have discussed, how does this bring satisfaction to customers, guys? how do you think DevOps will get satisfaction to customers? Any thought, any idea or thoughts on that?
So sure, this is Sunil. So is DevOps mostly can be done only in Agile? It can't be done in your normal waterfall method?
Good question. It can be done. See, waterfall and agile are two different things, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens in waterfall is that in waterfall, you talk about requirement first, right? Analysis. You first analyze what is that you want, and then you gather the requirements. After
Hmm.
you gather the requirements, you take a sign off from the client, right? And then you get into the next stages. But in agile, that's not what it happens. In agile, it's a continuous process. You are collecting the requirements throughout your software development, because that's what I'm telling you. Earlier, the whole process used to take years, but now what happens when we talk about agile, we work in bits and pieces.
Hmm.
So what happens is that in agile we talk about sprints.
Hmm.
Each sprints lasts from like kind of 3 to 6 weeks, in between 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the things. Every 6 weeks you have a demo which you will showcase to your client. Let's say suppose I am working on some web client or web server, a UI development. Okay, so based initially when I'm thinking of something, my client has given me certain requirements. So based on the requirements, my developer has developed something. But during the process, when actually the client looks into the product, he has certain thoughts that he want to change it. So in the agile, we are going to adopt those changes. That means every 6 weeks, you are getting a feedback from the client saying that, hey, this is not what I want. This is not the color that I want. I want my logo to be on the left hand side, right hand side, or the request should come this way, that way. That means if you take that, if you are in your whole software development lifecycle involves like 10 sprints, like if on average, if you're taking each sprint of 4 weeks, you're taking 10 months of time. Throughout the 10 months you are actually collecting the feedback, and at the end of the month you are actually incorporating all the changes that are coming to you throughout your way. But that's not what happens in the waterfall model, right? The showcase of the demo or the showcase of the product will happen only after the entire development, or once that testing, QA testing, all the testings are happening. Once you deploy it as a POC, then that's where the client will look into it. But in
Yes, it's
agile that's not the
all of
yes,
no, basically all the modules have to be delivered, and then you can.
exactly. In
But
agile
here,
that's not it's happening. In agile, every day you get a chance to communicate with the infrastructure team. Every day you get a chance to talk to the testing team, everyone. And at the end of the sprint, you showcase what you have developed so far to the client, and client is going to give you feedbacks. You collect those feedbacks and you incorporate that in the next sprint.
okay.
That's what it happens. Like
Hmm.
whatever is happening in the waterfall model, and those every process will happen in every sprint of your development.
Okay. Okay. So
That's what
so
it brings
so
value to
DevOps,
the sort. Yeah,
DevOps, I mean, in the sense like DevOps has much more agile, or at least what the delivery wise, it's much more better in agile than if you're trying to keep it in the waterfall side of it. But with
exactly.
DevOps itself, it can be done anywhere. And DevOps is you basically having a continuous process where you can interacting with all these different technical stakeholders at least.
Exactly. So in other words, what I should say is that agile is something which talks from the manager perspective, and
Mhm.
DevOps which talks from the operational perspective.
Okay,
So that's what I can just draw a line in between these two.
sure. Yeah. And I think your question about increased customer satisfaction, I believe, I think one way their customer is satisfied is because if you have any problem, they get to know those problems as
We
earlier than.
just discussed now, right? The whole process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they get to see the product in iteration models,
Mhm.
and they are allowed to give their feedbacks, which will leads to the proper, customization of their applications or softwares. That's where the customer satisfaction is included, and he is able to give his feedbacks throughout the life cycle, and developers are able to get their things and adopt and incorporate those things in the next release.
Yes. Thank you, Shiv.
So yes,
Uh,
and like I said, DevOps. Yeah, someone has question.
yeah, Shiva, Suresh here.
Yeah,
If
Suresh.
this iterative and incremental stage of development, if scope changes by the customer, so
So
that way,
yes,
how the lead time can be reduced?
exactly. See, what happens is that we always so it's a whole process that I want to discuss in the later sessions. So there is a model here. There is a product owner, product master, right? So It's not that out of the blue a client will come and he will going to change requirements. So we are going to stick to the requirements, whatever the end goal is there, and but within those goal we are going to do the model. It's not that the entire scope of work is going to be changed. There is always a product master who is our product manager, who is responsible of leading the team to the right direction without any confusions on what we have.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll
So
discuss those models as well. Yep.
if the changes are consistent, I mean, probably that customer is asking repeating requests for changing the scope, then I think we can stick with the existing scope, and then later stage we can go to the next stage. That's
Exactly,
all.
exactly. Yes, that's how it is.
Okay.
And it's all
Thank you.
taken care by, like I said, the manager, the product managers, like your project manager. It's their responsibility to communicate back to client, convince them of what they want. Sometimes, yes, as a business use cases, if you think he's a valuable client and all, yes, we even as as a developers or as a developing environments, we compromise on those things and we incorporate. But that should not go beyond the limits.
Okay.
It's all about the mutual understanding between the client and the development teams.
Sure. Right.
So here comes the whole story, guys. Like DevOps from the operationals models, we call it like CI/CD pipelines. You might have heard, right? Continuous integrations and continuous deployments. So CI/CD, guys. So it's a general process, but we are going to draw a line between what does the development guys do, what does the operations guys do, and how this whole process is going on and stuff. So continuous integration is a process of executing the software build, deploy, test cycles frequently with minimal manual intervention without the underlying principles as one of constant communication and feedback among team members. Like I said, we made a few points of what is a development does, right? So development teams are going to write a code, okay, and the code has to be compiled, it has to be built, it has to be tested, right? And there's a whole process. So as a development team, it's not one person who is going to work on the team, right? So it is going to be multiple developers who are going to work on the team. And when we talk about this coding, so when we talk from the coding perspective, that's why we talk about version controlling here, by the way. So multiple developers are working, they need to merge the code, understand the requirements, and then compile the code and then build it, test it. If merging is failed, fix up the issues. If compilation is failed, fix up the issues. If testing is failed, make sure your code is able to meet up to the testing. Quality analysis, if it is not meeting up to the quality of what we have, then fix the issues, right? All of this process is continuous process, guys. Earlier we used to do this manually, by the way, but now it is all automated with the help of tools. Okay. And talking about continuous deployment and builds up the earlier concept by providing fast automated feedback on correctness and production readiness of your application every time there is a change to a code, right? Once the build is done, the specific build has to be deployed onto the environments, maybe test environment, UAT environment, dev environment, pre-prod environment, and do a lot of manual testing or performance testing, load testing, and able to make sure that it is able to fix up. If not, again give the feedback to the development team saying that, hey, your code is not able to perform as expected or as been expected by the client. Make sure you tweak around your code and fix the issues, right? This is the whole process that happens, guys. So throughout this process, you don't have to be there on the system and then do the jobs manually. So all of these triggers would happen automatically. The moment the developer commits the code, a job gets triggered in the integration system where we use Jenkins as a tool, and it does compilation, it does building of your tool, testing all the test cases and all. If that's success, it sends your build to the artifactory, and then from there a deployment tool would pick up the new artifactory and then deploy into a new server and then do the testing cases there. So this whole process is done automatically, guys. You don't have to do anything there, right? And that's what we call like CI/CD pipeline, like continuous integrations and continuous deployment is what we call. So during these stages, different organizations, different development teams use different tools for that matter. So if I want to talk about those tools, there are so many tools available out there. I can just show you the glimpse of what tools we have altogether. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this. DevOps periodic table. See guys, so these are the tools that we have in terms of building up of the CI/CD pipelines here. Like for source code management is usually where developers are going to commit their code, do all the collaboration of the code before they actually commit it. So GitLab, GitHub, Subversion, ISPW, Artifactory, Nexus, Bitbucket, right? Perforce, all of this. Database automations, if you're working on database automation, these are the things. Like for continuous integrations, guys, this is what we use, where we extensively use Jenkins. It is an open source built on top of Java. For every functionality that you want, there are plugins available out there for you. You can use those plugins to build whatever is that you want. Apart from that, we also have like Bamboo, CodeShip, VSTS from Microsoft, TeamCity, AWS Code Build from Amazon, all of this. And for testing, like testers know this: Selenium, Gatling, Cucumber testing, Mocha Chai, all of this. And for configuration management, we use Chef, Ansible, Puppet, SaltStack, CF Engine, Packer, Rudder, and Terraform. But now, so Terraform is becoming more popular in terms of infrastructure as a code because of its versatile nature of communicating or establishing different providers. You can use Terraform to build infrastructure on top of Azure, GCP, Docker, Kubernetes, like AWS. You talk anything, it supports it. And in terms of monitoring, like we have in Nagios, Zabbix, ZenOS. Apart from this, there are other tools as well. So it's pure client use cases to choose what tools they want to build the CI/CD pipeline environments, guys. Okay, based on the skill set that they have, based on the functionalities, based on the licensing model or purchasing model that they have, they choose the right solution for them. And between this space, when I say continuous integrations, like or integrations thing, whatever we have like Jenkins, all those tools do the same job, right? But see, all those tools do the same job, but they are from different vendors, slightly variant from the way that we actually work. So that's what this entire CI/CD process gets. So during this process, we integrate these tools with each other, and then finally the product gets delivered. This is what DevOps does. When we talk about agile is more of what you need to build, how you need to build, and do you have any issues while building the software? Do you need any approvals? Is what the agile takes care of. Any questions here?
No, Shiva.
Okay, so that's what I have, guys. A very high level overview of what DevOps and all. Look, now it's your turn now. So if you have any questions, you're good to ask. I just want to keep this. No, it's your session now because you have joined with a lot of questions you might have. Okay, I just set a context here talking about what is DevOps and all. Now it's your turn. Anything that you have got to ask, feel free to ask, and I'm here to answer those questions.
Yeah, thank you, Shiva, for going through all those things on a high level. It's really helpful for us.
Yep.
But as part of the course itself, so what is it covered? Is it specific for the Java itself side of it? So you're gonna help us with some kind of like development tool, like Eclipse or something, or Cloud9 or something, and then go through the whole pipeline setup, or is this gonna be a coding and then delivering into something, deploy, do the deployment and all those things? What will be covered?
So basically, talking about the code, right? So like you said, the whole process here is not about the coding. Like, if you ask me, I'm not a developer, right? I don't code. When we talk about a code or applicable, ultimately it's all about the application, right? So as an application, let your application be deployed in any environment. Let it be Python, let it be Java, .NET, whatever it is. That as a developer, the kind of SDKs that you use is up to you. But what we are going to understand is that we are going to understand how, once as a developer you use different tools, different SDKs of your own development case, but you need to store your code somewhere, right? As a version controlling system in a centralized method, we are going to use Git here and understand how the code is committed. What kind of code are we going to get in Git? Like, we are going to understand in and out of how Git is going to work, like how developers are going to collaborate their code, how are we going to fix the issues, how are we going to merge the code, how are we establishing the release management or the Git lifecycle is what we are going to understand. It can be any code now. In the Git, you put your Python code, Java code, .NET code, or NPM code, or Node.js code. It doesn't matter. It could be anything, right? But as a part of the course, we will be taking as a test case, we'll be working on Java code. Okay, we take Java code as a code to build our web server, like a Tomcat server or var server and all. That code will be pushed to the Git. Once the code is pushed to the Git, next thing is like a compilation, building of the code using different build tools like Maven and all those things. We use integration tools called Jenkins. So we are going to first understand the architecture of Jenkins, like what are the best ways, what is a Jenkins, how do we manage Jenkins server itself, irrespective of the code that we are going to work on here. And after that, we are going to take a couple of test cases of how do we actually build a job. Now, my job is to build a Java code, right? It needs some prerequisites like Maven. So we are going to talk about Maven life cycles, and we are going to build a job. So during build, we come across issues. We understand how do we fix those issues? How do we get the output? What is happening in the Jenkins, right? How it is built? How do we offload the workload? How do we maintain high availability? All these things we'll be discussing in Jenkins. Once that is done, let's say I have a var file now, right? And we are going to understand how this var file is artifacted. How are we going to preserve this var file? Because let's say it's a version 1. Tomorrow the developers are going to build a version 2, a version 3, version 4. How are we maintaining these versions, right? There should be a way of maintaining it. We are going to understand how the artifactory works. Once that's done, now finally it's all about deployment. How are we going to deploy now? So what are we going to do here for deployment? So we use different tools like Chef, Ansible, right, Puppet. So these are the called as configuration management tool solves, but we are not going to discuss all of them, but they do the same job. So we are using Ansible here. So as Ansible now, and now the moment your var file is built, now Ansible job is to build or deploy this var file onto a Tomcat server. So how are we going to build the Ansible playbooks and all of those things? Once it is deployed, the next thing is to monitor now. So we are going to see how this monitoring is done. How are we collecting the metrics? What kind of metrics are we going to? So this is the part of it. So these are the tools that we use like Git, Jenkins, Ansible. And now I'm talking about infrastructure setup here. Like when I'm talking about provisioning of virtual machine, it needs a network, storage, right, access and all those things. We use Terraform. We are going to understand how Terraform will be used to build the infrastructure and stuff. Apart from this, now the traditional methods of deploying the applications onto the VM is fading away. Everybody is talking about containers and their orchestration. So we'll be talking about Dockers here. And in terms of orchestration, we'll be talking about Kubernetes. So my point here is that we will be talking about individual tools first, apart from understanding how they are integrated with each other. Once we understand the whole process of how these individual tools itself will work, then we'll talk about building up of a CI/CD pipeline.
Okay. So Shiva, so you just will go over those Git, Jenkins, Chef, all this Terraforms, Docker, and Kubernetes. So this is basically setting up the CI/CD pipeline, right?
Hmm.
Oh, okay. And for any hands-on, can we try this hands-on anywhere else, like on the
Yes.
AWS or somewhere?
So all of this environment we will be building on top of AWS. You
Okay.
will have your own infrastructure, right? You will have your own accounts. I'll guide you to create your own accounts, and I'll be showing you first. You will be given certain assignments. You will be working on the assignments and building your own infrastructure on top of your infrastructure, so that you understand the whole process, and everything that we are going to work is a complete hands-on, guys. I
Okay.
build it, you know it, and you build it. You come back with questions. If you are building it, that's fine. That's how it is going to work.
Okay. Good. Thank you. And
Yeah.
how long is this gonna be? The whole thing?
So it will take approximately like 6 to 8 weeks, like the
Six.
way that we are going forward.
Okay.
So it's all about hands-on. So sometimes I may have to stretch on giving you a different use cases scenarios to make you understand the concept. The usual time is like 6 weeks, but it can go up to additional couple of weeks
Okay.
depending on the pace that we are going.
And how many classes in a week?
5 days a week.
5 days a week. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Sure. One more question. What are the tools which we cover on the this training session?
I just told you, right? So
Hmm.
Git, Jenkins, Ansible, Terraform, Kubernetes, Docker. In terms of monitoring, we'll talk about Grafana, Prometheus, and Kibana. These are the things. Got it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. So guys, like I
Uh,
just told you, right, there are different tools available, but we have been changing the course content constantly to meet up to the market demands. Now, the job market, I believe everyone wants to get into a job, right, into DevOps job, to change whatever is you're into now. That's the whole point of learning this course, right? So now the market is entirely revolving around three main tools, which is Terraform, Docker, and Kubernetes. So if you put these three profiles, three tools in your resume, you are going to get a calls. But as an add-on, we are also learning other tools. So earlier it was Ansible that people were talking about. Earlier people were talking Puppet. But now the requirement, the number of people who ask for Puppet is less comparatively to people who ask you for Terraform. So that's how it is. It is evolution of tools, and now Terraform is doing very good in the market. So we are adjusting or constantly changing our course accordingly.
Thank you.
I missed your your previous experiences. Could you please provide again?
So my experience was more onto infrastructure, and where I used to maintain a lot of on-premise infrastructures, build data centers on top of VMware, worked on various VMware solutions. I worked as a consultant right from my career, beginning of my career, where we understand the client requirement, we give solutions, and then got into Amazon AWS as a primary public service provider and build solutions on top of it. And later on we also build all the solutions on top of Amazon to be automated by using CI/CD pipelines, using both Amazon native tools as well as this third party tools of DevOps. So I work mostly on infrastructure as automation environment, building or helping developers to build CI/CD pipelines ultimately.
Okay, thank you. And I want to ask you regarding all these DevOps concepts, how because if I want to learn Azure and how these will be reapplied, how we can reapply, or is this only applicable to AWS?
No, see, not that's what I told you, right? See, DevOps is a methodology, guys. I told you it's not a specific technology, right? So this method applies basically for software development lifecycle. Now, your software development cannot stick only to Amazon, right? It can be on AWS, it can be on-prem, it can be on Azure, it can be on any other like GCP or whatever it is. But in order to build this software development life cycle, like as I'm talking about Jenkins, you need to put your code somewhere, you need to test it, right? You need to deploy, you need to build. So there are different tools here. So what happens now is that there are third-party tools and there are native tools to this specific cloud. So when I'm getting into AWS, why should I again use a third-party tool? Let me use Amazon native tools to build it, right? So no matter what, so when you get into Azure, Azure has their own native tools. GCP is coming up with their own native tools. So that's the whole point. But even if you have native tools, the whole process of CI/CD will remain the same. But only the tool change will change. The kind of tool that you are using might change, but the rest of the process, the whole process of DevOps and CI/CD pipeline will remain the same. There is no change in it. So when you use Azure, Azure has their own tool chain. Amazon has their own tool chain. You don't have to use Azure or AWS to build a DevOps. I can also build it on-prem on a VMware or Hyper-V or some other virtualized environments. I can do that. Is that clear?
Yeah, I have one more question regarding the like after having this course, can I like is Kubernetes is only high level like covered, or we can practically implement Kubernetes?
See, I will be covering all the concepts of Kubernetes, whichever is needed. Like I said, Kubernetes is huge now, right? But I'll be spending like around 1 week of time or more than that to make you understand the architecture of Kubernetes, how to build an environment, how the deployment happens, the entire thing you'll be able to understand.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, I'm from WebLogic middleware background, and I don't know about the DevOps. Now I'm learning this, and will you able to help? Sorry, I'm getting hiccups. Will you able
Yeah, yeah.
to like provide help in preparing resumes and for the like for preparing for interviews?
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. So I'll be helping you on terms of creating your resumes, how the interviews are going to be, what kind of questions you might expect in the interview, on what topic, how what you need to tell in the interview. All those things I'll be helping you guys.
And also, I just
Okay.
want to tell you. Sorry, I think I'm asking too many questions.
No problem, no problem.
I'm mainly into Azure, not AWS.
Mhm.
But I hope this course will be useful, right?
Yes, I told you, right? See, Azure uses a different set of tools for getting into it, but this DevOps course will give you an idea of how the CI/CD process is built. It will be helpful. So now Azure came up with new Azure DevOps concept where they are using their own native tools in terms of development or building up of CI/CD pipelines, which has easy integration with Azure tools. But this is also the same thing. Ultimately, you need to know the CI/CD process here. So if you understand these concepts, it will be a kind of cakewalk for you to get used to Azure tools there, Azure DevOps.
Shiva,
Hmm.
I got it.
see,
Thanks.
basically, I'm a typical engineering background person, and in the mid-career, how can I adopt these type of tools in further career, and what additional efforts I need to
See,
apply on this type of
guys.
environment?
Yes, I get these kind of questions. Let me tell you guys. Engineering. I what I understand is you're mostly into infrastructure management, right?
No, I'm typically a mechanical engineering, not in the IT
Okay.
engineering.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
My bad. So you are
yeah,
not into IT at all.
yeah.
Okay. So still, that shouldn't be a problem. It's all about the the kind of interest that you have and the kind of zeal that you have. See, this whole path, right, needs Linux skill set,
Okay.
some kind of scripting. I mean, you don't have to write a hardcore scripting, but you need to understand how scripting works.
Hmm.
Like, what is that we get out of it? Some infrastructure concepts or the prerequisites before you actually get into DevOps.
Okay.
Because the DevOps all resolve whatever the tool that we are going to work, we are going to build it on top of Linux. It's a black screen. You don't get a GUI kind of thing to work on it, right? And we do some kind of scriptings to do a manual task. Every time you don't have to run manually, so you write a small scripts to automate it. And infrastructure, like how is the network built? How are people accessing it? right? What do you do when people are not able to access it? Where is the issues? Understanding those aspects. And on top of those concepts, we are going to build the DevOps concepts here, right? And those things will be taught here. And again, it's all about the practice that you do and understanding the big picture of it is how the DevOps is built. Then you should be good to do that. That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. So
So it's all about
not an additional programming languages I need to learn or anything like that.
no,
It's like
no.
we are already involved with the project management of our existing projects, and SDLC, all these concepts wise is okay.
Hmm.
And in terms of automation tools which we use for our design and day-to-day activities, we have engineer to orders. Like we have some Autodesk products which they give WebLogics and iLogics, we call it as, and we create our own iLogic parameters programs like if not functions and all those things. So I
Hmm.
think that will be sufficient to can go into this DevOps training, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, I'm only into the most of the times in the operations side. I'm working as cloud admin side. So, but I want to go through the DevOps. I don't know how to do the coding because when I did the engineering, we don't even have a Java at all. So I have 8+ years experience, and right now I'm in the US and working on as a cloud admin, kind of only into operations, not even into the DevOps side. So do we need any coding? Because in my current job, they're asking about a lot of automation we have to do, and my manager is like after me because right, well, when consultancy is applying for the jobs, they do apply with the fake experiences and job
True.
responsibilities. So I just want to decide to come into the DevOps. There is no coding at all, or how much coding do we need to do?
See, I cannot draw a line there of how much of coding we can do, but yes, coding is obviously needed. Like we are not going to write any Java code here, by the way. We are going to work on infrastructure as a code. Okay. So when we talk about Terraform now, see, nobody remembers every single syntax of whatever they are working on. So if your organization is using Terraform, you need to understand how the Terraform scripts are built. And what I understand is that these Terraform scripts or Ansible scripts are very simple. They are human readable. Terraform uses its own HashiCorp language. Okay. And when we talk about Ansible, Ansible uses YAML. So these are not Java, these are not any .NET code. They are very simple, but you need to understand the flow. So as you said, you do a lot of IT operations, like whatever you manually do. You start with basic building blocks, like now provisioning of an EC2 instance. How do we do that? Building up of a VPC network. How do we do that? Anyhow, we are going to see those in the courses. So once you understand the basics of how we are actually building it and how we are building it, and you can use the same concept of how we can do it in other environments. That's how it is. So coding will be there. I cannot tell you that without there won't be any coding at all. Yes, coding will be there, and I totally understand as an operations guy getting into coding scripting is kind of some hesitations there, but you don't have to worry. Even I came from the same background. I used to get scared of coding and all, but now I'm okay. I'm comfortable now in writing Terraform scripts and all, because you don't have to remember anything. Everything is out there on the internet. The documentations are there to help you out. Understand the use case, build them. It's quite easy. It's not that difficult.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, guys?
Oh, sure. I think so. The course content itself is listed somewhere, right? The document is available somewhere, I guess.
Yes, yes. So you might have received that in the WhatsApp invite itself.
Okay,
So if you click on the link, you should be able to open it.
sure. And the timing is also pretty much the same timing, 1 hour each day at some
Yeah,
time.
1 hour each day, exactly.
Okay, in the same timing. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Shiva, sorry to interrupt you. Hi, everyone. The batch is starting from Monday onwards, that is 26th August. Timings are from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. IST. So everyone, please do check your mails for more info. And also you can reach us on the numbers, whatever I have provided in chat, if you need a few more details. And if anyone is connected newly without getting details, please leave your details. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Shiva.
Yep. Thank you. Anything else, guys?
No, thanks for your time, Shiva.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Have a good day. See you all on Monday.
Thank you, Shiva.
Thank you.
Thank you all.